After 24 races, thousands of laps, and millions of dollars spent, the 2025 Formula One World Championship was decided by a margin smaller than a single overtake. For the first time in 4 years, the trophy didn't go home to the Netherlands. The Max Verstappen dynasty is technically over. Lando Norris is your new world champion. But if you think the championship standings tell the whole story, you haven't been paying attention. The driver who lifted the trophy might not have been the best driver of the year. In fact, looking at the raw data, the real performance gaps are shocking. We've crunched the numbers, analyzed the telemetry, and broken down the psychology of the most volatile season in a decade. Here is the real ranking of the top 10 F1 drivers of 2025. Before we get to the rankings, we need to understand the battlefield. 2025 wasn't just another season. It was a complete overturning of the established order. For years, we got used to Red Bull running away with it. But this year, the script flipped. McLaren built a rocket ship. Williams resurrected themselves from the back of the grid. And Ferrari? Well, Ferrari was Ferrari, brilliant one weekend, baffling the next. This creates a problem when ranking drivers. How do you separate the talent from the machine? Is the champion truly the king, or just the guy with the fastest car? Let's start at number 10. Coming in at number 10 is the man who refuses to age, Fernando Alonso. Aston Martin did not give Alonso a championship contender this year. In fact, the car was often barely capable of fighting for points. And yet, the two-time world champion did what he always does. He dragged the car to places it had no business being. The key metric here is the teammate battle. Alonso outqualified Lance Stroll at all but one race. That is absolute domination. While he didn't have those singular, flashy weekends we saw in 2023, his consistency in a mediocre car keeps him in the elite tier. But if we're talking about miracles and bad machinery, we have to talk about number 9, Pierre Gasly. Let's be blunt. Alpine's 2025 season was a disaster. The car was overweight, underpowered, and difficult to set up. It was, by all accounts, a miserable year for the French team. And yet, Gasly shone. He somehow scored 22 points. To put that in perspective, look at the other young talents in similar machinery. Drivers like Jack Doohan and Franco Colapinto didn't record a single top 10 finish. The genius of Gasly's season wasn't Sunday, it was Saturday. He dragged that Alpine into Q3, the top 10 shootout, 11 times. That is arguably 11 times more than the car deserved. Gasly proved this year that he is ready for a top seat, if only the sport can provide one. Moving up the grid, we find the two men responsible for the biggest surprise of the year, the resurgence of Williams. At number 8, we have Alex Albon. Albon's season is a story of two halves. In the first third of the campaign, he was electric. He racked up 7 points finishes when the pressure was highest, spearheading Williams' stunning run to 5th in the Constructors' Championship. But form is a fickle thing. As the season wore on, Albon faded, taking just 3 points in the final 8 races. And that allowed his new teammate to eclipse him. That brings us to number 7, Carlos Sainz. When Sainz joined Williams from Ferrari, many thought it was a step down. And initially, it looked rough. The first half of his season was plagued by bad luck and a few uncharacteristic errors as he adjusted to the new environment. But after the summer break, Sainz was a different animal. He delivered podiums in Azerbaijan and Qatar purely on merit. Not luck, not attrition, speed. His consistency in the final stretch proved that Williams made the right call. He finished ahead of Albon in the standings and proved he is definitely the one to watch heading into 2026. At number 6, we have the revelation of the season, Isack Hadjar. Rookie seasons are rarely perfect, and Hadjar has started with a nightmare. He crashed out of the Australian Grand Prix before the race even started. In the brutally unforgiving world of F1, that can end a career before it begins. But his response was stunning. Hadjar didn't just recover, he excelled. He took a podium at Zandvoort. Yes, he benefited from Norris's retirement, but he had the pace to stay with the leaders for the entire race. Statistically, he was a qualifying monster. Only the top 5 drivers in the championship escaped Q1 elimination more often than this rookie. He comfortably outperformed his teammate Liam Lawson, and he's rightly earned that promotion to the main Red Bull team for next year. This brings us to number 5, a driver whose season will be studied by sports psychologists for years to come, Oscar Piastri. If we ended this list at race 14, Piastri would be number 1. He was pure class. He was unshakable. He built a 34-point gap over the field with 10 rounds to go. The title wasn't just possible, it looked inevitable. Then came the collapse. 2 crashes in Azerbaijan triggered a spiral. He went on a podiumless run that lasted until the penultimate race in Qatar. To lose a 34-point lead in the modern era requires a catastrophic drop in form. Piastri ends up 5th on our list because, while his peak was championship-worthy, his valley was too deep. This is a sliding doors moment for the Australian. Does he bounce back, or does this haunt him forever? At number 4, we have the man who fought with one hand tied behind his back, Charles Leclerc. Ferrari did not have the second-best car this year. At times, they didn't even have the third best. And yet, Leclerc took a sensational pole position in Hungary, a track that should have exposed all the car's weaknesses. He secured 7 podiums in a season where McLaren, Red Bull, and Mercedes were all objectively faster. Perhaps most telling is the gap to his teammate. Leclerc scored almost 100 points more than Lewis Hamilton in the same machinery. He did everything right in a year where everything went wrong for his team. And now, at number 3, the world champion Lando Norris. I know what you're thinking. How is the world champion only third? Here is the hard truth. Lando Norris won the title, but he made it much harder than it needed to be. Given the dominance of the McLaren in the second half of the season, a 2-point victory margin highlights serious struggles. For the first half of the year, Norris was his own worst enemy. Poor starts and strategic hesitations almost cost him everything. It looked for a long time like he would be the bridesmaid to his teammate Piastri. However, credit where it's due. When the pressure was highest in the final stretch, Norris delivered. He shot to the top of the standings when it mattered. He is a deserving champion, but purely on driver performance, 2 others were better. Number 2, George Russell. While the world watched McLaren versus Red Bull, George Russell quietly put together the best season of his career. He was the best of the rest, and the only driver outside of the title contenders to snatch race wins, dominating in Canada and Singapore. Russell's season was defined by a lack of mistakes. In a 24-race calendar, he was robotic in his consistency. He was the only one who truly threatened the duopoly at the front. If Mercedes can give him the car, 2026 could easily be his year. Which leads us to number 1, the runner-up, Max Verstappen. Verstappen's story is the inverse of Oscar Piastri's. Piastri had the car but lost the form. Verstappen lost the car's performance but kept the form. The Red Bull was not the fastest car for the majority of the season. At times it was a handful. And yet, the now former champion won 8 races, more than anyone else. Look at the dependency. Max Verstappen scored 421 of Red Bull's 451 total points. His teammates, Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda, struggled to even make the top 10, while Max was fighting for the title until the very last lap. He didn't lose the championship. The car failed him. As a driver, operating at the limit of human potential, Max Verstappen was still the benchmark in 2025. So Lando Norris has the trophy. But Max Verstappen retains the reputation. 2025 gave us everything: a new champion, a rookie sensation in Hajar, and the resurrection of historic teams like Williams. But it also left us with burning questions for 2026. Can Norris defend his title now that the monkey is off his back? Can Hajar survive the pressure cooker of Red Bull next to a vengeful Verstappen? And can Carlos Sainz turn Williams into a winner? The history books will say Norris won 2025. But the data says the battle for the title of best driver is closer than ever. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to subscribe. We'll be breaking down the 2026 technical regulations in our next video. You won't want to miss that.